You can't take the white teenage weeboo out of you, can you? Hello friends, my name is Emily, I'm the bi, and here are some books off of my bookshelf. So, when I was in middle school, I moved to Seattle and I became obsessed with manga. So I was always really into anime when I was a kid because of like Toonami existing, and it kind of would do that hour-long block of Sailor Moon and Dragon Ball Z, which I think is a really nice kind of range of my interests because I would watch both of them, and it's a range of my interest in both anime and manga, but I think also in most stories. I want stories that fall in one of those intense extremes. So those shows were coming on when I was probably in elementary school or so, and then when I moved to Seattle, my cousin was like, hey, did you know that manga exists? Because he was also into anime and manga, and I was like, no, I did not know that manga existed. Wow. And so we spent the 2 years that I lived in Seattle becoming obsessed, or I was becoming obsessed with manga. So he would always get the Shonen Jump and I would borrow it and read what was going on, and then I would always get, because I was on that scale, Shoujo Beat. And he didn't care about that, but that was all for me. That was for me. I loved it. It was great. Anime and manga is also how I became friends with 2 of my best friends, including the girl who made me realize I was bisexual. Wild. So when I graduated from college, I came home and was like, wow, I have so much manga and I'm never gonna reread most of this. Which was probably true, but also maybe I probably would have reread it if I still owned it. Mystery, who knows, who's to say. I had somewhere between 200 and 300 single volumes of manga, which I whittled down to maybe 30, like absolutely huge on haul. I turned them into like Mr. K's, where I got a bunch of trade credit and bought a bunch of other books, so like great, really cool, very fun. But I wanted to run you through some of the ones I kept, why I kept them, what they're about, all of the things. Okay, first of all, I have to say that when I was living in Seattle and I was in middle school, I took Japanese because A, my school offered it. Excellent, very cool. Don't remember any of it almost. And B, I took it because I wanted to be able to read manga in Japanese when it was coming out, because it was obviously coming out in Japanese before it was able to come out in English with a translation, because that takes time. And I was living in Seattle, and so we had access to a bunch of stores that sold manga in Japanese imported. And so I was like, but I can read some of my favorite series early. I never was able to do that, but I do own a bunch of Japanese manga. There's not a lot to say about these because I was never able to actually read them. I could read some stuff of them, and what's nice about manga is that when there's kanji, they put the hiragana and the katakana next to it so you can kind of parse it out, because it's for people in Japan who maybe don't know all of the kanji, which is great. But I was still never able to read one fully, so great. So I'm gonna run through the Japanese ones I have really quick just because I'm going to. I have volumes 15 and 17 of Fruits Basket. I started buying it because A, it wasn't coming out quick enough, and B, I bought 15 because she is my favorite character, and I don't know if that's still true. I haven't reread Fruits Basket or rewatched it in a long time. I might do that actually, because the new reboot anime came out recently. I bought these because of that reason. Fruits Basket was a big reason why my friend in middle school, Amanda, and I became friends, and it was a big reason why me and my friend Jordan in high school became best friends. I was like, well, I gave up all of my English translations of Fruits Basket because I figured I can just read it online, or I'll rebuy it or something, whatever. But I wanted to keep the Japanese ones because I feel like these would be harder for me to find in North Carolina, where I was living at the time. Okay, the rest of these are all from my favorite mangaka, who is Yuki Kaori. So I have a bunch of Yuki Kaori Japanese manga. Some of them came out in English, and I just like had bought them early, or I thought they were never gonna come out in English and then eventually did. And I think 1 or 2 of these maybe have not ever been translated. And so, you know, I just keep them because I love them. So I have volumes 6 and 7 of one of my favorite series, which is Godchild. It's great. I'll talk more about it in a second because I still have the English versions of it. I also have the first volume of Fairy Cube, which did get translated into English, so I will talk about it in a minute. And then the other 3 are, I think this one is called Screw. This one, Diane Live, question mark? And then this one, I can never remember the name of. I think this one did come out in English and I just haven't bought it yet. I also think maybe Screw came out in English. I'm not sure, but I don't think that this one ever did. I always have to refer to my Angel Sanctuary art book to remember the titles of them though, because I'm that person. I also have this very beautiful Angel Sanctuary art book, which has a bunch of Angel Sanctuary art, obviously, but also some stuff from like Kane Saga and other books that she did art for that never came out in English or like weren't ever going to get like a proper like art book run, because Angel Sanctuary was the longest running manga she ever worked on. And we'll talk about it right now because it is one of the books that I still own. I only own the first 5 volumes of it. It is 20 volumes long and I will own them all eventually. This manga is about a boy and a girl who are brother and sister. There's incest, just so you know. That she has a lot of incest in her work, which I think is wild. Anyway, this brother and sister who are living in Japan, who are like part European or something, end up being caught up in the battle between heaven and hell, and maybe they're angels, maybe they're like demons, maybe they're a thing. It's great. I love it. The art is beautiful because Yuki Kaori's art is always beautiful. Michael is hot as hell. Man, this like has everything I need because like I love hot angels and hot demons. That's part of the reason why I love Good Omens so much. Like hot and funny angels and demons, love that shit. It's so good. And this definitely has that. It's also very dark. Again, there's incest, so like deal with that if you need to. But I really like this manga. It's great. Okay, so Fairy Cube. I honestly don't remember that much about this manga. I'm going to reread it soon because of that and because I'm going to reread all my manga that I own soon, but this is 3 volumes, at least translated into English, and it's, I think, about a boy who gets transported into the fairy world, question mark? Not sure. I'll report back later. Okay, next I want to talk about my favorite probably manga ever, which is a combination of the Kane Saga and Godchild, also by Yuki Kaori. So these were both published by Shoujo Beat, so was Fairy Cube. That was actually how I think I came into contact with Godchild and Yuki Kaori specifically, because the single chapters were in Shoujo Beat and I was reading it at the time. Godchild and the Kane Saga is about a boy named Kane who lives in Victorian England, and he is basically like trying to figure out cult murder mystery stuff that's been going on, that is going on. And it's very like Sherlock Holmes, but what if he's pretty and kind of gay and super rich? And you're like, wow, I love that for me. He has this like intense, interesting relationship with his like butler bodyguard. He has like a weird, dark little sister that I love. I'm obsessed. He's also a child born of incest, and his dad's kind of like in a cult kind of thing. It's very weird, wild, love it. So the thing with Kane Saga and Godchild is that Kane Saga is all the same characters, and it came out before Godchild in Japan. It's like the prequel series, or like Godchild is the sequel series. But when the story came to America, they published Godchild first, which is how we all kind of consumed it, and then Kane Saga was published later. But I always, when I do rereads, read Kane Saga first because it is supposed to be first. You can even tell from like the art style, like this is much more like 90s anime manga, whereas Godchild is very much like, this is what Yuki Kaori's work actually looks like now. It became her style. But Kane Saga is still very good, even though it doesn't quite look like the rest of Yuki Kaori's work. Okay, I've divided the rest of this up into things I read as manga first and things that I watched as anime first and then retroactively went back and read the manga. Let's do stuff I read first. Also introduced to me by Shoujo Beat magazine was Ouran High School Host Club. I love this series so much. It's like such a quintessential like perfect shoujo, because like there's kind of some gay stuff that's also a little incestuous, which is wild, but also some like regular kind of gay stuff. And then there's also just like a sweet like straight romance, but it kind of is like gender non-conforming. Oh, it's great. I love this series. This is about a girl who, she like gets gum in her hair at the beginning, so she like cuts her hair and she kind of looks like a boy, like a really pretty boy, and she goes to this elite boarding school. She's there on a scholarship. She accidentally breaks this vase at the Ouran High School Host Club and ends up having to work in the host club to pay for it because she's there on a scholarship and not a rich kid like everybody else. And the host club is a group of extremely beautiful boys who basically do like hosty stuff where they like do tea and they sit with the girls. Like it's not like sex because it's high school, but like, you know, that's the vibe. And they do it for all the girls in the school who like pay them. It's so wild. This manga is so wild. Anyway, the anime is also very sweet. They also did a live action version of it, which like, I've never been really into live action versions of manga or anime. It just doesn't appeal to me, but the anime is very good. 10 out of 10 would recommend. Very sweet. Ugh, perfect shoujo. All right, Trigun. I love Trigun. Trigun is one of my favorite. This is Trigun Maximum. I am trying this and one of the other series that I'm going to talk about in a minute. I'm trying to like get all of the editions of, I can't remember if Trigun Maximum is the sequel or the original version of the story, but Trigun is a story of Vash's Stampede. It's set in sort of like the pseudo-American West, and he is he a bounty hunter? I can't remember, but he is just a badass. It's a very heavy like action manga and anime. The anime is so good. I rewatched the pilot of it recently and like holds up. Still very funny, still wonderful. It's great. But it's like an old Western basically. And then he also has like a brother who's kind of like the opposite of him, and he's kind of like the big, not necessarily villain, but like the big kind of like impedance to Vash's like straight shooting. So love that. It's really good. Would recommend if you want like a very solid action comic. This series might be the only Tokyo Pop series I have. Is that true? No, that's not true. Anyway, let's talk about Loveless. This is one of my favorite shoujo mangas ever. This story is set in a universe that is so completely wild. I could only probably have gotten into it as a teenager, so like good looking out self, because now I'm just like obsessed. But it is a story where until you have sex and lose your virginity, you have cat ears and a cat tail. And so like that's how people can tell if you have had sex. Wild. Don't really understand what the purpose of that is, but okay. Anyway, it's about a boy who I think is like 14. No, he's 12. Okay, great. Who is trying to figure out, I think, what happened to his brother who was murdered. He gets like a message from his brother, and it leads him into like his brother's friend circle. It's kind of gay, but it's also weird because like he's 12. I don't think it ever actually goes anywhere, but you know, it's just like, what a wonderful shoujo. I'm gonna reread it, see if it's actually problematic. I may change my opinion on this later, but I have the first 7 volumes of it, so I mean that would clear up some space if I have to get rid of it, I guess, but love this at least now. Okay, let's talk about some manga that I love a lot because I really loved the anime. I'm gonna start with the shortest one, both anime and manga, and talk about Wolf's Rain, which I only have the first volume of, but there are only 2 volumes, so to complete my collection won't take that long. This is a shonen anime and manga about wolves. It's about 4 wolves who are being hunted. They end up turning into or can disguise themselves as humans, and so they're trying to make it to paradise because they're being murdered and slaughtered by people. And so that's just that. It's an action thing. It's from the creators of Cowboy Bebop, and it's extremely good, really pretty art. There's some like queer subtext, because of course there is, and it's just very fun, very good. Well, it's not fun, it's very dark. I think it's really depressing. I think I remember crying during the anime, so look out self whenever you rewatch it. Okay, we have to talk about some actual queer shit, which is Descendants of Darkness and Gravitation. Kyo Katamaro, I don't have that, but I used to have a bag for it. Oh, I gotta revisit that. So Descendants of Darkness and Gravitation are both animes that, this one for sure is gay. I think this one is gay. I'm pretty sure. If not, it's like one of the, it's like Clamp where it's like heavily implied kind of thing. I also gotta get back into Clamp. What a good weird collective. Love that shit. Anyway, this is about it's about people who work in the afterlife, I think. These are 2 manga where the art style at the beginning, which you can see here, which I don't like that much, isn't the art style of the anime, where the animes got made once the art style had changed, like when it got far enough into the series where the art style was starting to change. And so the anime matches the like final finished form of the manga art, which I like quite more in both series. But I really like Descendants of Darkness. Very fun, weird. It's like a bureaucracy. It's like death bureaucracy. Into that as a child and as an adult. Still very interested. Gravitation, on the other hand, is about stardom. It's about a boy who, I think he wants to be a singer. He has a microphone. I assume he wants to be a singer. But when his favorite, I think artist, I feel like he's an author, but when his favorite musician is like, you're not that good, he becomes obsessed with proving him wrong, and then eventually ends up in a very gay relationship with him. Love that for us. childhood, like fucking formative media, my dude. Gravitation is it. And then finally, I just wanted to talk about Sayuki. So in past videos, I have talked about how 3 of my favorite stories that I love when people adapt and like reinterpret and change are Arthurian Myths, Peter Pan, and Journey to the West. And so when I always think about Journey to the West, I think of 2 animes and mangas. I think of Dragon Ball Z, which is a very easy to see adaptation, especially Dragon Ball specifically, not Dragon Ball Z, but Dragon Ball specifically is very clearly an adaptation of Journey to the West. Another very clear adaptation, but definitely like full ass change in the same way Dragon Ball is from Journey to the West is Sayuki. I fucking love this manga. So this is the original series, and then they did a sequel series called Sayuki Reload, and this is, I love it so much. I'm always obsessed with, I am deeply in love with Goku. I always am, every time. So this is about a priest who basically ends up with like this ragtag group of people, including Goku, who is the Monkey King. I'm so obsessed, I'm so in love, oh my god. I'm just like thinking about it and I'm like, wow, I love it so much. Amazing. I don't actually even remember what they're trying to do necessarily, but they're trying to like go do the Journey to the West thing, I think. Anyway, I'm obsessed with Sayuki. I used to not own Sayuki actually. These are manga that I bought after college, after I did my huge purge, and I was like, okay, so if I decided that I'm only going to own manga that I care about and that I love, then I should start buying the manga that I do know I love and care about that I never did, which was Sayuki. I also wanted to share very quickly, one of the other animes and mangas that I really liked was Fullmetal Alchemist. I still do. I have the original Fullmetal Alchemist anime on DVD, and then I also have the anime profiles of Fullmetal Alchemist, which is like a really nice full color book about the original anime, which is the one that diverges from the manga, not Brotherhood, which follows the manga. And then I also have the just Fullmetal Alchemist profiles, which follows the manga. So this would be more apt to look at Brotherhood. Oh my god, I cannot believe I turned straight to the Envy page. Ugh, Envy is my favorite character. I could talk about Fullmetal Alchemist forever, and honestly, I might do a whole video on just Fullmetal Alchemist if you guys would be interested in that. I'm so fucking obsessed with Fullmetal Alchemist. I'm also going to reread all of these series, and so I was going to make a video at some point after I reread some of them. Maybe I'll make like individual ones for individual series, depending on how long they are. Like I want to do like a full Yuki Kaori wrap up because I love her manga. I would love to revisit all of it and kind of assess if I do still love her manga. But yeah, those are essentially all of the manga that I own. It's not like all of it, but those are all of the series that I own manga from. And then I'm going to slowly start rebuilding my collection, finishing out the books that I already own, and then also work on getting back or getting the books in the series that I either want to reread and discover again, or that I feel like I should own fully, like how I decided I should own Sayuki because it was insane that I didn't already. Bonkers. Basically 2020, I'm trying to do a like hard get back into anime and manga because it is one of my favorite things, or at least it was, and I would like for it to be again, especially because manga is so great and I love comics in general. I got very into American comics in college when I wasn't into anime and manga, so I just like shifted it to another perspective, and I still love American comics, but like, you know, I want manga in there too. I don't know, was any of that interesting? I have no fucking idea.